Hi guys, my name's John and I'm a trained veterinarian and biologist, and today we're talking about career paths into working in wild wolf reintroduction with a focus on the Mexican wolf. My guest is Claire Musser, Executive Director of the Grand Canyon Wolf Recovery Project. So, what can you expect in the next half hour? This is not a natural history documentary. Instead, what we'll present is a possible career path if you want to work with a not-for-profit in large carnivore recovery. It's an interview in which I ask the questions I wish I'd asked 35 years ago when starting my own wildlife career. And before we go any further, I would like to say thank you to my subscribers. Without you, there would be no channel. Working with large carnivores and living the dream of conservation leadership looks like this. You can become an expert in anything you set your mind to. One way to do this with wolves is to read everything about them. You can start with the work of Meach and Boyani. With the enactment of the Endangered Species Act, American federal agencies had the aim of recovering threatened species to the point of delisting. The aim of the Mexican Wolf Recovery Plan is to maintain a captive breeding program and re-establish a self-sustaining wild population. Claire, for aspiring wolfers out there, I'd like to set the scene and with the question, how would you describe Mexican grey wolf conservation today and what jobs does that produce?
Yeah, so obviously I'm from the UK originally, but I live out here in the US. And so here in Arizona and New Mexico, we have 319 Mexican grey wolves out there in the wild. And there's also a really small population of maybe 20, 30 or so out there in Mexico. They just actually released some wolves out there not so long ago. And they are the smallest, most distinct subspecies of grey wolf in the world. And what with everything going on in the world right now, everything that I say today could be completely different tomorrow. So we're working in a very shifting time at the moment. And so what our job, it's really difficult to keep up with everything that's going on and to figure out how to respond to calls to action, because we are pretty much getting bombarded with calls for wolves to be delisted. And now we're finding that some of the strategies are to try and lump Mexican grey wolves as a distinct subspecies in with grey wolves. And so that will speed up potentially any delisting that they're trying to push through for all of the wolves. So it's tough out there. So for Mexican grey wolves, as an endangered species, they have what they call a 10J listing. And that means that the agency, so US Fish and Wildlife Services, see them as experimental and non-essential. So that means in the recovery area, predetermined area that humans came up with, wolves are only allowed to be in this area. If they leave that area and they travel north of what we call Interstate 40, then they are right now fully protected. And so there's a lot of debates about, well, if we let wolves roam, then they are fully protected and they can travel wherever they want to travel. All of the litigation, legislation, everything is based on this recovery area. So yeah, it gets pretty complicated. And having wolves listed as experimental non-essential, what they're basically saying is, well, you know, it's an experiment. If anything goes wrong, doesn't matter. We'll just start over with our captive population. There's about 350 or so wolves in captivity. And they say non-essential. So you might have seen how wolves change rivers in Yellowstone, and you know the importance of having wolves on the ground, but we only have 319. So they're going, oh, well, do we really need them or do we not? And then you also need to consider that when the pioneers came over, they spent all of their energy and resources to eradicate predators and turn the landscape into something that they could control. And now all of a sudden they're getting the feds, as they say, to reintroduce wolves. And so everything is, it doesn't matter how great the science is, this is all based on a values system. And so if we find a lot about wolf recovery, it doesn't matter if people don't believe in the science and the value of the science, they will make decisions not based on science, hence the shifting times that we're in right now. So yeah, it's a complicated, difficult issue, and trying to communicate this into words that people can understand is a real tricky component as well, because it's really, yeah, there's a lot of paperwork to go through to try and make sense of what it means for wolves out here in the US.
Yeah, yeah. Is I'm assuming now that the Mexican grey wolf population in your area is
Yeah.
completely separate from the efforts of the Yellowstone reintroduction project 40 odd years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, so wolf reintroduction happened around about the same time. So we're talking about the late 90s. So our wolves, Mexican grey wolves, were reintroduced into the landscape in the 90s. And they took a lot of what they learned from Yellowstone and thinking about what it means for Mexican grey wolves. But Yellowstone, they're in this bubble. When they're in Yellowstone and they're in the park, they're safe. People can do science, collect data, all of that stuff. They're in this nice little space. Obviously, when wolves leave that space, it doesn't always go well for them. Our Mexican grey wolves, they're out there on shared land. So they've got ATVs, so vehicles, campers, hikers, cows. There's a lot more going on that landscape. But we have had wolves that have gone. Echo, the wolf, she came all the way from the Rockies and made us way all the way down to the Grand Canyon region. So they are going from north to south. And one of the other issues and complexities of this is they decided back in the day that Mexican grey wolves are going to be here. This is their historical range. They're not allowed north of the I-40, and this is where they've got to stay. Well, not only were they basing that on data from a time when wolves had already been eradicated, but the landscape is never going to look like it does or did in 18 something or other, this mystery time that everyone thinks of as, oh my gosh, rewilding back to this. Well, no, that's not the reality. That's never going to happen. So how can we be future thinking when it comes to having large carnivores on the landscape? And what do we do about climate change? Because everybody's shifting north. Everybody's changing their range. And so locking these ideas down into historical range doesn't give us the opportunity to learn from the wolves themselves. And so that's another part of the puzzle too, when wolves do things that humans did not want them to do. And they spend a lot of energy getting wolves that have gone north of the recovery area and then bringing them back. And wolves, what do? They just turn around and go straight back again. And so, yeah, there's a lot, a lot going on. And I feel like we would get a lot further if we just listened to the wolves.
And Claire, what jobs are there with wolves?
Oh, all sorts. So, you could, and we need a lot of diversity in people, in the people that are talking about wolves. So you've obviously got the classic biology, ecology. So you've got people looking and studying wolves. And then you've got the lawyers working in environmental law, trying to change policies and litigate for the protection of wolves. We don't have enough social scientists looking at our perception and our views about wolves. We have got artists that are out there creating pieces of communication about wolves and wolf recovery. So literally, like, the limit of you being involved is your own creativity, your imagination, and your want to do something for wolves. We can literally take you from any discipline, and there be a space for you, because, like I say, the struggle is real for all of us. So the more ways we can communicate these quite complex ideas, the better. So, and also, if you actually want to get out there on the ground and you actually want to be there and seeing what's going on. So you have organisations that spend a lot of time looking at what it means to have ranching, so cows on public land. And one of the projects that we do with students specifically is we will take students up to Washington State. We will take you out range riding on horseback. You will go out wolf tracking, learning about what the wolves are up to, learning about how these ranchers are living successfully alongside wolves and meeting ranchers that also, you know, appreciate the biodiversity and appreciate the wolves. So we will take you and we will show you that we can have wolves and cows on the landscape together. And that's one of the programs that we do. And I come from a very academic background. But the organisation I work with, Project GRIPH, that's GRIPH, they are out there doing specialist conflict prevention on the ground. And his experience is 100% with the wolves. So everything that he did is based on learning from the wolves themselves. And so we have quite an interesting conversation up there, because we're talking about you can get into helping wolves from a very academic background, and you can also come from just going out there and being a range rider and actually preventing conflict before it can start. And we've got, so I've had students that have started off volunteering with me and are now been accepted into a master's program to go out there and study on the ranch alongside the wolves and the cows and the ranchers and the dogs and the horses and everybody else that we work with.
Fantastic. Obviously, you and I have corresponded for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But for the viewer who doesn't know, you work with wolves, Claire. What do you do?
Yeah. Oh, all sorts. So I spend a bit of time in the office, obviously, because there's a lot of things you have to do in the office. But I also go out and I track and see where wolves are on the landscape. So we get to know where wolves are with a collar, but we only get data that's a couple of weeks out and every 2 weeks. So I will go out there, I'll take my volunteers out there, and we will go and we will look for signs of wolves. A couple of weekends ago, we went out there in a place that we knew that there were wolves. We saw 5 wolves the other week. And we've got spaces that we don't share where I see wolves quite a lot of the time. And we also go out there and listen to people that are living alongside wolves. And in the office, I will create opportunities for volunteers to go out and help me create the first and only Lobo family tree. So I've got people literally finding sources of information since the recovery idea started back in when they went out there and looking for wolves on the ground to start the recovery program. We're putting everything together as a Lobo family tree. We go into school, students, I go into universities. I'll go anywhere basically where people want to know about wolves, and I will stand out there in the woods with my scope all day, or I will go out there and talk to kids for 5 hours, or I will go to the places where people don't want me and get yelled at by angry hunters and ranchers for a couple of hours too. But that's all part of figuring out what we need to do. So
Brilliant. Wow. Claire, do you do it for personal satisfaction, professional recognition, or the dosh?
Oh, well, definitely not the money, because I work in non-profit. And in America, it's really hard to work in non-profit because we don't have health insurance. We have no benefits in my job anyway, because we are super grassroots. Definitely don't do it for that. I don't do it for the ego, because there's too many egos in this field. When you're working with big charismatic carnivores, egos gets in the way. And I do it for the wolves. So everything that I'm doing, I'm always thinking, hang on a minute, is this for me or is this for the wolves? So I won't go out there tracking wolves if I think that I'm going to put any of the wolves at risk. All the data that we're collecting is data that's going to help us figure out how we can live more peacefully alongside these wolves. And the work that I'm doing in my PhD actually is about co-thriving futures. So what it means to we got to get away from this whole idea of coexistence, which is really based in tolerance. You're over there and I'm over here, and we just kind of pretend that we can kind of get along. But I'm looking at co-thriving, where we look and we pay attention and we acknowledge the individuals in this case, the wolves that we're living alongside, and what happens when we get to learn about their habits and their wants, needs, and desires. What happens when they are active agents in their own recovery? And that's a lot of things that I work on. So yeah, I'm only definitely not in it for the money or for the ego. And yeah, I get to talk to people. I get recognised around as this Brit working with wolves, but everything I'm doing, I'm always doing it for the wolves. So I won't get that shot if it compromises wolves or puts them in danger. It's never about them. And obviously the students, I do it for them too, because like I say, that I try and create opportunities that I didn't have. And that is a really rewarding part of a hard job, is seeing wolves and watching students light up when they learn about the sea wolves.
Claire, how did you shape your career?
Oh, good question. So my world is very eclectic, which is probably why I'm doing pretty well at what I'm doing. So I started off in the arts industry. I started off in photography and production. And then I decided to go into education. So I was working in art as like an art and media teacher in high schools and colleges in the UK and then in the Cayman Islands. And then when COVID came around, I decided to go back to school and get the master's in anthrozoology that I always wanted. And that was the study of human animal interactions. And my master's thesis was about Mexican grey wolf recovery from the perspective of the wolves themselves, not thinking that there would be a job there because it's so small and so niche. But I use the opportunities in all of the things that I do to network just all continuously, all the time. Anybody that is vaguely connected to what I'm doing, I'm asking them all of the questions and building relationships with people that I don't see exactly how we're going to work together right now, but I keep all these possibilities open. And then after that, there's a job that came up and I'd already connected with the organization and it was like, do you know anybody? And I was like, actually, I think I do. That'd be me. And then I applied and I got the job. And then it doesn't stop there. So I was already working on a PhD. So I kind of shifted the focus of my PhD a little bit to incorporate what I'm doing on the ground with the wolves. And I made a film just as well the other, and it's on the film festival circuit, and it's about black bears. And so my film is called Bears in Hot Tubs, and all of the things I know about wolves, I'm looking at in our relationship with urban black bears in LA, and my film is out there doing pretty well on the film festival circuit. So really, and my networking meant that when I asked people to help me with a film about bears, they were like, absolutely, absolutely, we'll help you. What do you need? And that's how it all comes together. So networking, absolutely. Even volunteering, get seen out there because people will remember you. And everything is an opportunity. So even talking to somebody in the line at the checkout, I can end up talking about wolves and bears, and I'm constantly spreading the love. So don't stop talking. As you know, I talk a lot, and don't stop listening and seeing what's going on.
Brilliant. And what is your most treasured possession in your wolf
Oh,
field kit?
so at my wolf field kit right now is my scope. So I was seeing wolves out there, and I couldn't quite see through my binoculars. I just could. My eyesight is not what it used to be. When I was a student, I had really good eyesight. Not so much anymore. And my scope. So I'm out there with my scope, looking, seeing what's going on, and that's a game changer. After the scope, it would be my drone. Haven't quite figured out how to use that yet. I'm still learning, but I'm pretty sure that's going to come in really handy once I master the landing. I will be out there, and again using my drone and stuff, and also being mindful about if it is disruptive or not. So how do we use technology like that when we're out there looking for wolves? Is it going to cause issues? We have to see. So I might not like my drone later on, but right now it's been pretty interesting surveying the landscape and seeing, being in the place where wolves are.
Claire, what skills do you need to reintroduce Mexican grey wolves into an ecosystem like the Grand Canyon?
Oh, yeah. So out there, that people that work in the agencies, obviously they have all their field experience and they will take you as an intern as well. So build up that volunteer experience, and then you've got more opportunities to get out there and intern and be in the field team as those opportunities come up. You can go out there and work with Fish and Wildlife Services, Arizona Game and Fish, and New Mexico Fish and Game, or Game and Fish. They always switch it up just to confuse me. So you can go out there and work with them and get your internships and a placement and build up your resume so you get out there on the ground. But also the skills that you need, it's just really the limit is your imagination, really, because we need people that are really good at understanding the law stuff. We need people that can communicate these ideas to help prep the social landscape for wolves that are out there. We need people that just want to go out and range ride. And I say range riding as a tool in a big kit of being a specialist in conflict prevention. So if you're a range rider, you also need to know how to remove carcasses, how to talk to people from very different points of reference to you. And social skills are really important because you're just not going to be working out there just on the ground looking for scat and tracks and tracking wolves with telemetry equipment. If you're working one of the agencies, you need to be able to constantly respond when you get stopped on the side of the road because people are asking you, what are you doing? You need to be able to talk to people that are pretty angry with you or what you represent. So, yeah, there's a lot of things. Really, the limit again is your imagination and your creativity and your drive. And also, one big thing that you need to think about to getting in any of these fields is compassion fatigue, because you can have days where you just want to cry all day and give up and curl up in a ball and just not have to deal with it. And so you really need to be able to take care of your own mental health, because there's people that go into this thinking that, oh yeah, I can change it all. And it's tough. You've really got to think about looking after yourself, because you're going to be pretty useless if you don't take care of yourself when you're out there. And you're out here, you really want to have a little bit of your backcountry survival skills, because like I say, you're working. I mean, I was out here the other day and it started snowing. I've been out here and the wind has just really picked up. You've got to really pay attention to fire alerts, your safety, all of those things. Do you have a cell service? What happens if everything goes crazy and you don't know about it? So yeah, you got to do a bit of practice before you just go out there and disappear for a week, because you'd be amazed that you're out here and you literally won't see anybody for a week.
And Claire, how can new entrants into wolf conservation acquire these
Yeah.
skills?
Start off, if you want to hit the ground running, volunteer. I've got volunteers that are all over the world, either doing data projects. I've even had volunteers from the UK that have come over and worked out here in the field with us. We're looking for grants all the time as well. So if there's something that you want to do that we don't do right now, help me find a grant and we'll do it. So our Pathways to Conservation program, if you want to do that on your own, just showing up, you need to get yourself out there to Eastern Washington, and it would cost you like $2,700. But we got a grant to do it, so we're taking out students for the cost of a flight and their food. So really, yeah, just keep looking for these opportunities and volunteer. And it's a very small world, so you can make really good traction and get noticed and be somebody that people, you know, look for, or you can come into this very small little world and really upset the wrong people, and everyone's going to know about it before you've even realized. So you remember, you're working in a very small, tight, polarizing community. So everything you do is out there. I expect to be every time I'm out there talking to people. I expect there to be a camera or photo of me every time. So be mindful of that. And yeah, because it's easy to start moaning about stuff and it's easy to get disheartened, but look for the hope and the positivity. And we're going to hire you if we feel that you're in it for the right reasons and that you're in it to make positive change. So yeah, just get out there and have meaningful conversations and be respectful, because if you want to work with the ranching community, then you need to listen to what the ranching community needs. You can't tell me that you love wolves and then tell me that you hate somebody else, because we need to embrace and love everybody in this multi-species community. We can't start isolating people, because that's the quickest way for this to all fall apart. We've got to think about the future that we want.
And Claire, what issues would you like to see addressed in wolf conservation in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I want to see us think about all of our stakeholders, and our most vulnerable stakeholders are the wolves themselves. So we often hear, and I know it was a key strategy, in the 90s or whatever, where animals are voiceless. We need to speak for them. We need to use our voices for the people, for those that can't speak for themselves. And I was like, well, no, animals do have a voice. They're showing us what they need for their wants, needs, and desires. And it's up to us to start listening and pay attention. Just because they don't do things like humans does not mean to say they're not doing the same things that we're doing. So we both communicate. I have to get on my cell phone if you're a mile down the road, but the wolves are just going to howl. I have my boundaries. I mark my boundaries. I might put a fence up, or even if I've got my camp, the camping etiquette, you don't go into somebody else's camp. What do wolves do? They leave those markers, their scat and their scent markers. Right. They do all the same things as we do. We have family. We all have, we all think and we all feel. And so it's about time that we start recognizing that and we start including them as stakeholders. And my PhD research is all about what happens when we recognize animals as co-creators of knowledge and co-participants in research. So that's what I want to see. And my students get it, the kindergartners get it, the high school students get it, the college students get it. It just takes a long time for the agencies to pick up on that, hence me going out and asking people as well. Like, you need to be fact checking everybody, including me, when it comes to this, and thinking critically, because everyone's telling you something from their own positionality. And no matter how many times they tell you that they're not being biased, at the end of the day, everybody's human. So you need to think about being a reflexive researcher and thinking about your position and how your lived experiences influence the way that you see things. And I want to see more people own up to their biases, being reflexive, and thinking about who they're doing this for.
And 5 years from now, do you see that the jobs market will change in the wolf? Well, let's say, for want of a better word, in the wolf industry or the wolf world?
Yeah, so everything is always shifting. So I think it's important as people that work in this field to give you as many transferable skills as possible. So even if you're my volunteer and you come out on all of my expeditions, you're out there with me, I will write you that resume and give you those letters that talk about the things that we've covered. But also, we need to be preparing you for careers that don't even exist yet. I mean, if we think about how much AI has changed what we're up to, those entry-level data running around jobs may not be what they once were, because a lot of us are starting to use AI to help with the data crunching and all that kind of thing. So you need to be thinking about all of the stuff that you're doing and how you can build a resume that shows that no matter what area you work in, you're able to use these skills towards wolf recovery. So even if you're like a mathematician, there's a lot of math stuff or mapping. There's loads of different things you can do, but you've got to be future thinking and not necessarily looking at the jobs that exist now, but thinking about how the landscape is shifting across all industries, including animals and everything else. So I feel like I've also talked to organisations before that talk about the amount of investment they do in their staff, and how they spend all this time training people and then they're going to leave. It's like, well, of course, because we have a ceiling in our small grassroots nonprofit. We can't expand our teams, and I know that you are looking to get these skills to move on and progress in your career. So my role should be about creating opportunities where you run and have leadership roles in these programs, but part of that is also you handing this over to those coming up behind you. And then what can they do to build on, modify, refine, maybe do something and something else even with the stuff that you've done. So I'm constantly making sure that our volunteers embrace the opportunity for growth, and I don't expect them to stay with me forever. If they do, there's other opportunities for them at other organisations that I can help, and they will still work with me, but in other capacities. So yeah, just don't pay attention to everything that's going on in the world, because you know what happens now. The price of gas really impacts how far I can get on my programs, because now it's a lot more expensive to get anywhere than it was a couple of weeks ago. So you're constantly shifting how you do stuff based on what's going on in the world.
And in the wolf world as it stands
Mm,
today, Claire,
yeah.
do you need a degree to work with wolves?
Oh yeah. So if you want to just go out there and be on the range, and you want to be a range rider, then we will work with you and give you all of the skills that you need on the ground. And some of the most interesting observations come from those people that don't have a degree, because they come from a way of seeing everything differently. There's a Just because it's published over and over and over again does not mean that it's still true. So David Murch back in the day published about alpha wolves and beta wolves. He was watching wolves in captivity. So of course they can't get away from each other. So of course I'm going to be an alpha wolf, because I can't get away from you and you drive me nuts. In the wild, we don't see that. We have breeding pairs and family groups. We don't see that because wolves can just go off and disperse and find their own territory. So yeah, you don't need a degree. You need to pay attention and figure out what you want to do. And if you do want to do something that is all on the ground, practical stuff, then reach out, because we can get you up there, out and tracking and range riding and doing all of the specialist conflict prevention stuff on the ground. And you don't need a degree for that. We can teach you all of that stuff, but we're hiring for personality when it comes to jobs like that, because a massive part of your job is talking to people.
Claire, if we can get a little bit into the science of wolves and the conservation biology of them, where do our knowledge gaps lie in wolf reintroduction biology?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. So the tricky thing is right now, obviously our Mexican grey wolves are out there on shared land. So it's a lot more difficult to collect that kind of data um, because it's just so vast. I mean, it's a huge area. So where the gaps land is people are looking at what it means and how effective conflict prevention, including range riding, actually is. And people have tried to publish studies based on that, but it's really difficult because nobody wants to be the control group. So we don't have anyone, of course, that is going to leave their cows out there in places where there are wolves and risk losing cows. And not only is that not good for the cows, that's not good for the wolves or the community, because we need to think about how we're preventing this conflict, and showing that range riding is effective isn't about showing that something else isn't. So what we need to do as researchers is reframe the question. So a lot of the things that we're doing, hence having master's students out on the corridors that we're creating. So Project Griff and Daniel Curry, they work as specialist conflict prevention teams on the ground, and we work with them with all of the back end admin and educational stuff, and they're out there on the ground preventing conflict. And so the research that we want to create on and look at on our corridor, like in this study, is we've got ranches that are living alongside wolves, and now we've got ranchers that want to be part of the program. So that is your control group study, because as a social scientist, you can have a look at the shift in attitudes from people living alongside wolves now and coming in with hesitation and doubt. You will see the change in the behavior of the wolves and the cows. And this is it isn't a wolf problem, this is a social relationship problem. And so a lot of the work that Daniel's doing is based on the relationship of the cows and the culture of the cows themselves. So it isn't just about is this effective? It's about, what is happening in this multi-species community. So I haven't met anybody else that is looking at the culture of the wolves and the cows and the people, and actually listening to the needs of the people and what the wolves are up to in this space. And part of my role in supporting Daniel and Project Griff is translating the things that he's doing every day into and putting this into academia. So we have a book chapter that we've co-authored together, and again, it was important that we co-authored the chapter, and it wasn't just me writing about his work. We wrote the chapter together, and we talk about the relationship and the culture of the cows and the wolves and the people, and also the legacy of the eradication towards wolves. So yeah, that's kind of some of the gaps that are in the research. And I say I've got a master's student coming out there to do research and collect data on the corridor, and I'm in talks with other universities across the West to try and get other students out there collecting other data. I'm not big on number crunching and spreadsheets and all of that kind of data. I work more in qualitative social sciences. So let's get you out there if that's what you like to do, and we can work together to show. We already know it works, and we're just getting this evidence together to put it out there. And one part of that strategy is recording everything we do. So my PhD research is also based in visual ethnography. So I'm looking at film and photography as a methodology. So that's part of the process. So we're collecting the imagery as evidence and showing what we're doing. So we're not just going to come in and create a film about what we've just done. The filmmaking is part of the practice, and everything that we're doing, we're hoping that will be a combination of short films or a series and social media and YouTube stuff that we can get out there to show everybody that no, we can do it, and this is what it looks like.
Where does the presence of wolves around livestock have a detrimental effect on stress levels in the livestock? And if it does it affect calving rates or taste of the meat?
Oh yeah. So we hear a lot about that. We hear a lot about the stress in the cows, and people will use that as a way of advocating for the delisting and continued eradication and poaching of the wolves. But what we're seeing on our corridor, and we've seen wolves interacting with cows. We've got the rancher will often tell us about how he's watched wolves and cows together, and what happens in their herd is they will herd together, and they will put the most vulnerable in the middle, and they'll escort the wolves out of the pasture. And they've also noticed the shift in behaviors of certain cows really paying attention to where wolves are, almost like watching as an alert. And so we've seen that, and these cows are not stressed, and you can see how stressed cows are by their flight distance. So how close can you get to the cows before they just all start running away? And I've been up in places where you only have to look at the cows and they're completely spooked, and they will just run off in panic. Whereas up there on the corridor, you can walk through the cows. Like, they're constantly working with the cows and with the wolves. And so, yeah, people will use that, but people also say that they are looking at low stress livestock handling practices, but there's no standardization about, what all of these things will mean. And so, yeah, and again, you've got to remember that some people want to set wolves up for failure too, and they will use all sorts of strategies to make wolves the villain. And if you think about wolves, you think about how they're used to represent the best and worst parts of humanity. So you can take the story of the wolf, and if you hate wolves, you can turn them into something that's quite satanic, or if you love wolves, you turn them into your spirit animal. So all of this, all of our mythology and our relationships that we have with the large carnivores really is our perception, and that becomes our reality. So if people tell you that they're afraid of wolves, then where did that come from, and what has been their experience? Because you have to listen to everybody, because everyone's bringing a different perspective. And if we just spend all of our time hating each other, we're going to carry on doing the same things that we've been doing since the 90s. You'll see that if you look back, you'll see that we've been having the same conversations as we did in the 90s. So something needs to change. And I feel like the idea of co-thriving and learning to live alongside each other, and the work that Daniel has been doing on the corridor, and he actually coined the term of co-thriving, and I helped turn this into a theory and a praxis. Yeah, we can do it, and we need a lot more love for that to happen.
And continuing with the science and the biology,
yeah,
Claire, can you suggest a research project for an undergraduate animal management student?
Oh, so research project. So I think depending on where you are in the world, see where your wolves are. Go out there, talk to people. Maybe you've got wolves in a captive program that is near you. Go out there and see what they know and ask them those questions, because I'm very fascinated about what people working with captive wolves tell you and know and share with you about wolves. And you'll find that people that work in different spaces with different wolves have very different base of knowledge. So go out there, talk to people, come up here, talk to us, see what's going on the ground. If you're looking at behavior, go and look at the behavior of wolves in the zoos, and then see, what is your perception and what do you see happening? Because you can do as many ethograms as you like, but if you're not thinking about their lives and thinking about that they have these rich emotional lives, and we don't need you to just duplicate what someone else is doing. We need you to go out there and look at where these gaps are and what people are talking about. So if you're in Europe, I know there's talks about bringing back wolves to Europe, to Scotland. Think about what that's going to look like, and is the social landscape prepared to live alongside wolves? You can go off and do any combination of projects. Really, the limit is your imagination and your creativity, and then reach out and ask me if I've got any resources, because the best thing for me is when my students surprise me and come up with something that I haven't thought about. So yeah, just get out there. And if you're an artist or a filmmaker, that could be a research project as well. You could be working in the biological or ecological sciences and realize that communication is a big part of this. So go out there and meet your fellow students in other disciplines, in English or in anything, really. Like, we need diversity and thinking about this in very different ways. So don't just lock yourself in. Be a transdisciplinary researcher and talk to people, not just from your bubble. You need to get out there and find out what the real story is, because I've read a lot of stuff, so show me something different.
Claire, are there any practices or protocols used by the world of wolves, by your peers, that you would like to see changed?
Oh, practices. I think part of it is not being open to thinking a little bit differently and thinking outside the box. So we end up doing, just because we do the same thing over and over doesn't make it any better, right? So get out there, look at policies. Why do these policies exist? Well, a lot of it is based on a value system of people in these areas of power are making decisions about things that they don't live and they haven't seen. So I want to see less polarization, and I want to see people building more of a bridge. And I know for a fact, like, that people that are living successfully alongside wolves, they're not the ones showing up to the meetings because they're not having any issues. That's people showing up to meetings in their state agencies or whatever is very resource heavy. It's a lot of miles for people that live out there in rural America, and also a lot of times you're hearing from people that are very loud when it comes to sharing their opinions. So I want to see us think about ways to include the voices of all stakeholders, and I want to see more people thinking about how they're including the voices of the wolves themselves. And I guess you've probably been sitting here thinking and listening, going, "Oh, you know what? She does sound that she's very anthropomorphic. She's assigning human traits to animals, and she just, loves these animals and not thinking about them as, whatever it is. And I'll tell you that just because we recognize the rich emotional lives of more than human animals, it does not mean to say that we're being anthropomorphic. And a lot of my research and things that I'm thinking about is what Kay Milton terms egomorphism. So animals are like us rather than human-like. So like I was talking before about boundaries and communication, and we both have territories, thinking about through the lens of egomorphism means that we really are thinking about what it means to be a wolf. And you have biologists that turn around and go, oh, we can't know that, so we're not going to include it. And it's like, but we don't have to know what animals are thinking to know that they do in fact think. And we need to stop putting this anthropocentric worldview on our relationships, because we are part of nature, humans are part of nature, and we have a responsibility to help create a future where we can all flourish and thrive. And so I'd like to see more of that in the conversation, and I'd like to see less ego in that space as well. So we really start paying attention, because animals have got so much to teach us also about being better humans a lot of the time too.
And for new entrants into the wolf world, Claire,
Yeah.
what about the conference circuit? What are conferences that people should be attending?
Oh, have a look and see what's around in your area, and go to a lot of different spaces and see what's going on. I spend a lot of time in anthrozoology conferences because I'm thinking about my research in terms of human animal interactions. It would be called something slightly different based on where you are in the world. But yeah, go to conferences where they are looking at what it means to live alongside other beings, and go and start and be part of a movement for conferences that you can do as part of your own university. I've seen quite a few interesting anthrozoology related conferences come out of by master's students and students that are working in these worlds. So yeah, never stop looking. And conferences is a big expense, but it can be really valuable. And if you think about what you can present at the conferences as well, because I know people that are doing great research that are absolutely terrified about presenting their research at conferences, and we're going to conferences to have a look around and see what's going on. And it's like, yeah, you can do that, but also submit. It's all good practice. Every time you get into something, every time that you don't, it's all part of a learning curve. And I will submit to conferences, because for me, it really helps me articulate and refine my ideas, and go into a conference knowing that you're there to learn and that you don't know anything. And imposter syndrome is a real deal. But also, I get told all the time about your passion is infectious, and oh my gosh, what are you doing, and how are you doing this? And I've stood up there in conferences, in film festival circuits. I've stood there and said and shown, for bears, Maddie Bear, an American black bear, is the director of this film, and I'm going to tell you why. And sometimes I'm like, people are going to laugh me off the stage, but you know what happens? They don't, and by the end of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, my light bulb moment. I've never thought about co-thriving before, and you talking about Maddie as a director, it all makes sense. So honestly, just go out there and play around with these ideas and see what the reaction is. And don't stop talking. Network at conferences. Don't just sit there in the background. Talk to everybody, because you never know who your next collaborator is going to be. And like I say, conferences, don't stop at conferences. Go to events as well. I show up to all kinds of random events. I went to the P22 is a mountain lion that was living in Griffith Park. I went to his celebration of life, and I couldn't believe that there's thousands of people here at the funeral for a mountain lion. And it was the most beautiful event that I've been to, the most amazing funeral that I've ever been to. And somebody stood up there and on stage and said, when I told people that I was going to a funeral for a mountain lion, they laughed at me and said, only in LA. You know what I said to them? I said to them, yes, of course, this is LA. And so, yeah, just show up because, like I say, no matter who they are, mountain lions, bears, wolves, just keep talking about them because you really just need to spread that love.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Claire, any advice for someone who's applying for research funding?
Oh, yeah, funding is tricky. I hear you. It's stressful and it's really hard. A a lot of people will tell you that applying for everything is not a good strategy, but until you don't know until you try. So you need to start applying for things, seeing what comes back, talking to people, and just really looking for lots of different opportunities. And don't just start and end with the traditional channels for funding. I find funding through really obscure avenues. So part of funding some of these projects is getting the students to go out there and create a zine, and we will create a zine that we will sell and we will have and table at events. So think about all of the things. And I actually set up another nonprofit that works in academic research for that very reason, so that I can look for funding in lots of different diverse spaces. So talk to some of the other nonprofits as well, because they might have other programs that can support you. And yeah, just have a look. And maybe it's gear that you need. So reach out to companies that might support you with some gear that they're using. Listen to other students and see where everyone else is getting their funding from. Go on LinkedIn and see what people have got on their resume and how they got to where they're going. See if you can find any little things that they've put out there about the support that they've had in the past. And just be a really good human, because every time you talk to somebody, you don't know whether you're talking to your next, $5 donor who can turn into a $5,000 donor. And I've know of $5,000 donors that have turned into $50,000 donors. So just keep talking to people and making those connections, because I can fiscally sponsor students that are working in these fields through the grants that I apply for. So, I can have students out there working on this corridor, going out there working with range riders, because I've applied for grants through my nonprofit to take you out there to collect some of that research and things as well. So get creative, because you just never know who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm. And with an eye on the future for people wanting to enter wolf world, as I call it, work with wolves in the future, are there any emerging technologies that are invaluable to your project?
Oh, yeah. So there are lots of different technologies that are coming in. So, we ArcGIS, I'm not very good at any of that stuff. It's a bit of a headache for me, but there's other platforms where you can learn about how to do that stuff. So we use stuff like Zooniverse, we use FieldScope, which is kind of a little bit like ArcGIS kind of stuff. We go out and we look at all different kinds of technologies that people are using. And again, there's a lot of AI out there. So think about what it means to use AI responsibly as well, and the implications of using some of these programs and softwares. Yeah, just have a look and see what everybody else is using and go out there and play around with stuff. I think you as students, you pick it up a lot quicker than I do. So part of it is, you want to play around with the technology, join us and volunteer, and we will figure out how to make it work. I've got students that have started. I said, I know nothing about how to use this program. Miss Claire, we will figure it out. And off they go. And next thing you know, I've got all this sparkly Zooniverse stuff that they've created. And I had like zero input on that. So again, if you want to do something, ask and figure it out. Because, we created a Lobo family tree project. Turns out some of these programs can't handle inbreeding, right? Because our Mexican grey wolves are very inbred. They came from like 7-pound individuals. And so we found that all of the ancestry stuff we were using kept breaking, because it couldn't understand all of this data unless we put everything in manually. We've managed to find a system, a French system, that worked really well for us and could handle all of the weird things that we were doing with our data. So really, the limit, you're the only one that's getting in your, if you can bring something to me and show me what you want to do with it, again, I write really good reference letters. So I'm open to learning from you. Being the technology people that I am no longer that person, sadly. really moves real fast and faster as you get older as well.
Claire, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think the biggest thing is believe in yourself, don't give up. You don't let yourself don't get in your own way. It's all right to be worried, all right to be nervous, it's all right to be unsure about things, but just approach everything with love. If someone turns around and calls you a wolf lover, you just turn around and say, you know what? I love wolves, I love you, I love the cows, I love ranchers, I love the dogs, I love the horses, I love everybody. And you'd be amazed at how quickly that can diffuse a situation by leading with love. And honestly, you coming in as students, talking to people, it's much easier for you to talk to somebody than it is for me in a lot of instances, because you're coming at it with a natural curiosity, and people think that I'm coming at it again with my role with a hidden agenda. So I actually have some of the best things that come out of what we do is when I send students out there to go and talk to those ranchers and report back. And then it's like, oh, okay, this is great, because you went out there and you listened with such a pure, wanting to learn perspective that is worth a lot. So you as students have a lot that you can teach us too, and I'm all for that. So if anyone tells you you can't do something, you just tell them to go and take a hike, because you can do whatever you want if you believe in it.
Well, this has been an absolute delight. It really has.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
You are the Executive Director of the Grand Canyon Wolf Recovery Project. Thank you so much for being on Practical Animal Channel. It's been brilliant. Claire.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And like I say, just reach out. Any questions, I'm here. I always respond.